Hello and welcome one and all. This is Old School Gamer 1971 here. Millie, Lloyd, everyone. Hope you're all having a good day. If you would, please like and comment. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Support the channel and help it grow. Today's thoughts is on Titanic VR. I've been playing this game for around 3 hours, and this is what I think. Titanic VR, developed by Immersive VR Education Limited. It's an exploration game that came to PSVR in 2018. The Titanic sinking was the biggest maritime disaster from 1912 till 1917, until the Mont Blanc munition ship exploded in Halifax Harbour, and is still the fourth biggest in peacetime. The ship went down between the 14th to the 15th of April 1912 on the ship's maiden voyage that set out from Southampton, and its destination was supposed to have been New York City. Unfortunately, she struck an iceberg at around 11:40 p.m. and was on the ocean floor around 2:40 a.m. The Unsinkable was sank in around 3 hours. Because of the lack of modern technology, she was lost at sea until the 1st of September 1985. The wreckage was finally found by a joint US-French expedition. The movie Titanic actually cost more to make than the Titanic cost itself in adjusted money. Around 1,500 people perished in the disaster. The actual amount is unknown, as the ship's manifest was lost at sea. Some people cancelled and others booked on in the last few days. Immersive VR Education Limited was established in 2014. They are based in Waterfield, Ireland. So far they've developed Apollo 11 VR, Titanic VR and 1943 Berlin Blitz VR. Whilst they are mainly aimed at students, they are available for anyone to experience the subject matter. Personally, I see this as where the VR is an amazing tool, and not just for the students. These are experiences like no other, and they may not be 100% accurate. It is still informative and an enjoyable way to digest information. This really is an outstanding example of what the future could be, and it's thanks to the developer. It is certainly more interesting and informative than simply watching a documentary. So is this the Titanic, or is it Raise the Titanic? Normally I would mention plot around this time, but there isn't one really, so intro, but there isn't one of those. So gameplay. So this is made up of 3 sections really. The first is a fly on the wall view of a passenger's experience on that fateful night. At the time she was a young girl. Her brother and father were not allowed on the lifeboats, and even though she protested, she ended up on a lifeboat with her mother and a very argumentative sailor who most definitely cost lives that night. But it was what the captain had ordered, women and children first. But whilst not the first time that this order had been given, it was most famously associated with the Titanic. The women kept offering to row and asked to pick up more survivors, but it all falls on deaf ears. They helplessly can only watch as the ship slowly goes down. The second section is 2 tours of the wreckage. One is shorter and one is a bit long-winded, to be honest. These are informative and do look amazing, but for me the game comes into its own once you press start. The third section, the game itself, where you control the submarine and the rover. When you're doing missions and taking total control, it is really cool, and being able to go where you want. It is quite breathtaking, and it does give you an idea of the size and scope of what once was a great ship. To be honest, this all does look rather good, the rover bits especially. It is a recreation based on the footage of the wreckage, but does look outstanding. The characters on the 1912 bit does look better than they sound, but it still works rather well and is interesting. The submarine also looks good and the view hole really does add to the atmosphere. The sound is good and does sound like you're underwater. The voiceover during the tours is also not irritating. This is good, as on the long tour it would have been a nightmare. Being able to look around, and once I had the reins, made this all the more amazing.
In this section were mostly firemen, trimmers and greasers. These crewmen worked in the hot and dirty boiler and engine rooms, shovelling coal and greasing machinery. Because of this, they had their own special wash areas and slept in rooms away from passengers. They accessed their work areas through a passageway under the cargo hold below. Titanic contained 15 bulkheads, thick walls that separate her lower decks into 16 watertight compartments. It was a new design technique that meant Titanic could stay afloat with up to 4
This involves you so much more than a documentary. The first time you see the Titanic out of the window, its size is amazing. And whilst there is no real story here, it is rather cool to do the missions, and it does look and sound like you're under the ocean. And whilst you feel sorry for the family involved in the 1912 story, this was described by survivors. I just didn't feel that involved. And when you play the first mission and you put a name plaque on the deck for the families of the people who died on the Titanic, it is rather cool and certainly was very interesting to me. While 6 to 8 hours is listed, I would say it could take a little bit more. There is a lot to do and more to digest. I know I would do or look at some stuff a second time at least. Whilst this is not a long game, it does have a lot to offer, and certainly anyone who has more than a passing interest in the Titanic could get a hell of a lot out of this game. In a word, yes. I have always enjoyed documentaries, and this is beyond anything I have ever seen. This has so many things under its hood here. Some works and some doesn't, but all still have a place here. And whilst there is no trophies for this game, it does interest me greatly, just because it is like nothing else, and certainly I will give the Apollo 11 VR a go. So Titanic, it most certainly is. If you are hearing this, you've made it all the way to the end of the video. Well done. Give it a thumbs up and comment if you enjoyed the video. Please share as it helps the channel grow and improve. Enjoy your day. Old School Gamer 1971 signing off.